Part 67. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 663. Yulin snatched the copy-perfect crystal from the hands of the Supreme Mage. Success. No one knows crystal patterns better than Yulin. He rubbed it carefully in his hand. In an instant, it was concluded that this crystal was exactly the same as the original one. Really a perfect copy. Black technology is awesome. Each machine can copy one perfect crystal every 24 hours, so a single gem copying machine can copy at least 240 crystals during the remaining time of the trial. I need more gem replicators. Yulin took a deep breath, suppressed the excitement in her heart, and set a grand goal of exploding her liver. Iridium ingot. He needs a lot of iridium ingots. Enough iridium ingots to fill an entire farm. I can't draw energy from the dimensional rift now, but as long as I learn your knowledge and use crystal instead, it's not impossible. 20 years. He has stayed here for 20 years. Who knows how he survived the past 20 years? Now, the Supreme Mage finally sees hope of leaving this hellish place. Now, our goals are aligned. On the sumptuous dinner table, Yulin had a hot seafood hot pot on her left, and Mr. Cloak on her right held a large basin of iced squid tentacles floating in the air. Yulin pointed at the Supreme Mage with his chopsticks and said with a smile, "Next, I will go all out to mine the mine. If you want to get a lot of crystals, you must get a lot of iridium ingots to build a gem replicator. Here at the farm, Mage, you have to help. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it all by myself. At night, it's time for us to exchange knowledge. I'll teach you the crystal pattern technique, and you will continue to guide me in magic. Make a deal." The Supreme Mage's cloudy eyes were ignited with blazing fire again. To get out of here. For Farm Tycoon. For the crystal pattern technique. For magic. Cheers. Ding. Two glasses filled with fine wine clinked together. Yulin was on fire. Midwinter. Gugu Town welcomes a 3-day night market. Yulin took the time to go. Finally, I met the other apostles. A variety of novelties are sold at the night market. What Yulin is most interested in is the project of taking a submarine to go fishing in the deep sea. When he reaches into the deep sea and fishes out a large group of midnight squid, ghost fish, and blobfish, he can scare the submarine pilot. New recipes unlocked. After the night market event. After a few days. Yulin finally reached the 110th floor of the mine. The treasure chest is still there. Obviously his progress far exceeds that of others. Yulin admitted that she was suspected of cheating. Because the difficulty of the monsters in the mines after the 80th level is not as simple as it seems on the surface. But he would not publicize this kind of thing in front of Byrunding and others. The reward from the treasure chest is a pair of handcrafted purple boots. Space boots. Grade rare. Durability 500/500. Effect: tap and dance in the air. After activation, you can walk in the air for a short time. Duration 30 minutes. Cooling time, 24 hours. Instructions: click to view details. Still a piece of equipment. The properties of the equipment surprised Yulin. It actually has equipment that can move in the air. It lasts a full 30 minutes, which is plenty of time for most occasions. Yulin once wore it out of curiosity and activated the tap air dance skill. After the skill is activated, Yulin can easily step into the air without using her psychic power. Every time you take a step in the air, there will be circles of ripples under your feet, as if you are stepping on solid ground. The only fly in the ointment is that every time it takes a step in the air, it will make a crisp tap, tap, tap sound. The sound is very beautiful, and maybe it can also be used to make beats. This equipment is a bit naughty. Yulin took off the space boots and put on the Firewalker boots again, muttering to himself, "I always feel that the effect of this equipment is too cool." This piece of equipment is of little help to Yilin. It's a bit noisy to use. But equipment is never too little. Yilin put away the space boots happily. I haven't had such a rich harvest in a long time. Night. Yilin returns to the farm. Online guidance for a tired mage who's been logging around all day. Yilin put the apprentice hanging ring on her finger, put on the posture taught by the mage, and drew circles in front of her with all her strength. The orange-red light blooming with Mars was outlined in front of Yilin. Circle is the basis of magic. Because the stability of the circle is most suitable for the flow of spells. The supreme mage glared with hatred. What Yilin drew out is not round at all. There are more than a dozen edges and corners around the circle, not even an ellipse. The path you are taking is different from that of a serious mage. The supreme mage looked at the unorthodox apprentice mage and sighed. A serious mage must read a lot of books to understand and master the sources of energy in these dimensional rifts. Secret. You skip this step, and you can't borrow energy from the dimensional rift. To be honest, I don't know if what you are using now is considered magic, but there is no other way. You can only break the pot and throw it away. The Sorcerer Supreme was right. What Yilin learned was indeed not serious magic. He is trying to combine the mage's knowledge with his own understanding and telekinesis to form a brand new system. If the power of the wizard comes from the void, from darkness, from the multiverse, then the source of Yilin's power to cast spells comes from the human spirit itself. He used telekinesis and the form of magic to release it. Once mastered, this will be a brand new technology. But, it's difficult. Facing a new field, Yilin seemed to be dreaming back to the time when she studied in the Great Engineer Tower. The Supreme Master once said that the birth of a mage cannot happen overnight. This requires years of study and practice to master all of this. It just so happens that I have time here. Yilin was not discouraged, but was full of interest in this novel thing. Late winter. Yilin was absent from the most solemn festival, the winter feast. There is not much to go to. It is said that it was a festival for exchanging gifts with the residents of the town. Yilin was too lazy to improve other people's favorability. Before spring came, Yilin finally reached the 120th floor of the mine. The 120th floor of the mine actually has no passage to the next level. This is actually the end of the mine. Yilin was surprised. He didn't expect that this mine only had 120 floors. From the treasure chest, Yilin got a key. The end of the key is in the shape of a ferocious skull. Skull key. Grade unique. Effect: it is a key. Explanation: perhaps the president of the Adventurers Guild knows the origin of this key. I also know this is a key. Yilin read the explanation of the mysterious effect and didn't know whose intention it was. He had no choice but to put away the skull key. The Adventurers Guild was closed today, so he could only go another day. During this period, he also produced 2 iridium ingots as he wished, and built a second gem copying machine. Have to say, the explosion rate of iridium ingot is really too low. In one winter, Yilin only produced 4 iridium ingots in total. This is unscientific. He had already eaten Lucky Lunch, which temporarily increased his luck value to an unprecedented height of 5.2. Even so, only 4 iridium ingots were revealed. If he didn't eat Lucky Lunch, Yilin couldn't imagine the cheating rate. The 5 farmers are busy with their own affairs. Bai Runding originally proposed that the 5 farmers have a year-end dinner on the last day of winter. But Yilin refused. Bai Runding's tone at that time was a bit regretful. The mage plays a guest role as a farm assistant and works very hard to keep the farm in order. During the routine late-night exchanges, Yilin would also point out the deficiencies of the mage in the crystal pattern technique. At present, the Supreme Mage can independently construct some simple circuits without any problems. As soon as daylight came, Yilin rushed straight to the Adventurers Guild. Although Ma Long didn't have a good relationship with Yilin, when Yilin took out the skull key, Ma Long suddenly stood up from his seat and lost his composure. Do you know where I lost my eye? It would be weird if you didn't tell me that I knew. Ahem, the key seemed to trigger Ma Long's key element, and he recounted a secret. Legend has it that there is a magical bus at the bus station. Yulin thought about it and realized that it was indeed the case. You mean that magical bus that has been there for a whole year, with 4 tires removed and only the wheels left, and the whole bus is covered with rust? That's the one. Then what? That magical bus once led to a desert. This desert is somewhere in the Nongpo Valley, but except for that bus, there is no other way to reach that mysterious desert. Yulin listened carefully. In the desert, there is a skull cave. This key is the key to opening the skull cave. That's where my left eye was shot out. It's not bad. Yulin was not interested in why Ma Long's eyes were blind, so she casually continued to ask, what's in it? Gems, treasures, monsters. Ma Long stretched out a finger seriously. That is a scary place, and it is also a treasure that all adventurers flock to. Is there iridium ore in it? Iridium mine, Ma Long said with disdain on his face. Iridium mine is in the skull cave. What the hell is it? It's everywhere. Hiss. Done. That's it? Yulin suddenly remembered that one of the card collection tasks at the community center was to repair the Gugu Town bus. It turns out that it is such a continuous mission. All linked together. Yulin secretly sighed. Fortunately she cooperated with others. Otherwise, if he had to deal with the community card collection task by himself, he would not have been able to figure it out in a year or more. The slate corresponding to repair the Gugu Town bus seems to be Bai Runding's job. Yulin thought for a while but didn't urge her. Urging others will let others know that they urgently need the bus, which is not good. The following days, Yulin casually browsed the mines, while waiting for Bai Runding to complete the card collection task, and focused more on communicating with the Supreme Mage. Finally, on a snowy night, Yulin wears a hanging ring on her hand. A complete and round circle was drawn. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Xueshi. Chapter 664. The following spring. First day. Rebirth. The ice and snow melt. Robin's woodworking shop welcomes its first customer. Didn't I just help you expand the cellar last time? Why is it you again? Robin's favorability doesn't seem to be enough. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Farmer Yulin standing outside the door with a smile, looking a little unhappy. To be honest, just one cellar is not enough. It will cost more to build a second cellar. Robin the carpenter rubbed his fingers. She wore a tight, narrow skirt that showed off her slender figure. On the first day of spring, when everything is in bloom, I don't know where to go. It's no problem to add more money. Yulin had expected that it wouldn't be that easy. She secretly thought that she might as well catch all the spring fish today to avoid long nights and nightmares. Seeing Robin hurriedly preparing to go out, he asked, "Can we start construction today?" "Today? Hey, young farmer, you're late." Robin stretched out his white fingers, looked at the smooth nail polish on his nails, and smiled. "I'm going to Farmer Wang's farm next door today to help repair him." "Chicken coop, you'll have to wait another day." After saying that, Robin twisted his butt and walked away. Repairing the chicken coop? Are you dressed like this to repair a chicken coop? Yulin felt that she had seen through everything. But he has no evidence. In spring, everything in Gugu Town is in spring. Girls and women in every household put on colorful costumes to welcome the new year and new spring. Yulin came to Papier grocery store, which was still deserted. When buying seeds, Pippa slipped in a leaflet. "What's this?" Papier gritted his teeth and became emotional. "We must resist the invasion of Chiao's supermarket. He will ruin our life in Gugu Town." "Oh, come on." Yulin is not interested. He made a few casual remarks, bought the seeds and left. Didn't even answer the flyer. Pippa wore his beloved hat and looked depressed and tired. Yulin was no longer interested in other hidden side tasks in the trial. He has calculated that according to the current development trajectory of the farm, if it flourishes in the second year, he will be able to earn 30 million in assets in the middle to late third year. There is no need to worry too much. Yulin has more important things to do now. Back at the farm, Yulin and the Supreme Mage worked together to divide the planting area, place the iridium sprinklers one by one, and plant the seeds separately. It was easy to have help. It took Yulin a whole morning to complete the work of plowing, loosening the soil, sowing seeds, and sprinkling water. Perfect. The livestock that had been trapped all winter ran wildly into the farm fields the moment Yulin opened the doors of the chicken coop and cowshed, giving people the illusion of a collective escape from prison. You don't have to go to the mine today. The Supreme Mage wiped the sweat from his forehead and asked curiously. Forget it, Ma Long said that the iridium ingot explosion rate in the Skull Cave is higher. The output of iridium ingots in ordinary mines is too low. There is no need to waste too much time in the mine just for iridium ingots. Afternoon. The two scholars continued their academic discussions under the shade of the fruit trees. Yulin wore the Xian ring on her hand with a solemn expression. The telekinesis power gathered on the ring. Yulin felt that a channel was formed between her fingers and the Xian ring. The spiritual energy value was transformed into telekinesis power, and then transformed into some kind of wonderful thing. Spell energy flows near the hanging ring. The properties of the hanging ring are very clear. The role of the hanging ring is only to help the apprentice mage cast spells better. The hanging ring itself has no amplifying effect. Soon, as Yulin drew circles in the void with her fingers, a circle with a flowing halo appeared between the Supreme Mage and Yulin. Good. When the Supreme Master saw that Yulin had successfully drawn a decent circle, he was also excited. He squatted on one side, looking like a gambler waiting for the opening of the market, and yelled. Very good. Just keep it like this. This circle is the basis of all magic. There's nothing that drawing circles can't solve. If one doesn't work, draw two. Bigger. Bigger. Big big big. More big. Sweat broke out on Yulin's forehead. In front of him, the circle that had been maintained with great difficulty suddenly shattered when it expanded to a range that could barely accommodate one person to pass through. The Supreme Mage looked regretful and booed in annoyance or gloating. You are so noisy, Yulin glared at the Supreme Mage. Think about those days, the Supreme Mage recalled those days with a stern look on his face. It only took me one day to learn this move. After a while, it was the turn of the Supreme Mage. Your mind is full of spells. Yulin pointed at two of the misplaced cores and shook his finger. Can these be misplaced? Do you understand the basic method of circuit construction? No. There is a fundamental logical error in the root of the circuit. You can imagine that this root is completely unreasonable? Yes, you also know that what I taught is wrong? I deliberately deceived you to see if you can find out the problem. Don't you see it? If you see it, change it. What does it mean to stuff the core into the node stupidly? Put it down if you feel like it. If the road doesn't explode this time, I'll take your name. Let me tell you, when a Deng taught me, I started learning from scratch. It only took me 11 hours and 6 minutes to fully master and understand this technique, and I was able to draw inferences from one example. No. The two took turns teaching each other, and their relationship became deeper and deeper. This batch of apprentice engineers are not very good. This class of apprentice mages is not very good. The two of them expressed emotion respectively. In fact, the two have very similar experiences in their respective fields. Yulin has a mentor named Adeng. The Sorcerer Supreme has a hunky mentor named the Ancient One. Then their mentors died. Perhaps this is the fundamental reason why they can understand each other. Until afternoon. The two scholars, who were grabbing each other's necks and almost fighting, stopped their fists at the same time. They turned their heads together and looked in a certain direction outside the farm. The Supreme Mage was grabbed by Yilin's beard, but he instantly calmed down. It seems like someone is approaching. Yes, Yilin nodded, holding one hand up in front of him to block the Supreme Mage's scissor hand from thrusting into his eyes, and smiled. It's one of my companions. Quick! Hide! Yilin kicked the Supreme Mage into the house. The Supreme Mage did not make any fuss at this time. He closed the door tightly and pretended that he had never been there. After hiding the Supreme Mage, after a while, light footsteps were heard, walking on the stone road in the countryside, approaching from far away. A fragrant breeze is accompanied by the spring breeze, and the white and moist dings come. You're busy. Bai Runding was wearing a casual neutral white shirt today. Her bulging lines were shadowed in the sun. She wore cropped jeans on her lower body, revealing her graceful figure. It was obvious that when Bai Runding came, he had deliberately dressed carefully to appear decent but not arrogant. I'm sorry for coming uninvited. Bai Runding smiled slightly and pushed back her hair that was messed up by the spring breeze. Without waiting for Yilin to ask questions, she took the initiative to express her intention. I just want to tell you that I have been digging wild crops for a day today, and I have almost collected all the gold quality collection items required for the card collection mission. Yilin was silent for a few seconds, squinting her eyes and staring at Bai Runding with a smile. Have you forgotten that we seem to be friends? Haha, I didn't forget. Bai Runding also smiled. By the way, come and take a look at the progress of the opponent's farm. You shouldn't mind. As he said that, Bai Runding saw that Yilin was not angry, and he actually wandered around Yilin's farm, feeling the natural and fresh atmosphere of the farm. Ah, this is so direct. Bai Runding did not hide his purpose, but Yilin had nothing to say. Anyway, he hid the mage. Bai Runding would not be so ungrateful as to insist on entering his farmer's hut to search when a man and a woman were alone in the same field. By the way, Bai Runding turned his back to Yilin and suddenly asked, I went to the mage tower a few days ago and found that it collapsed and the mage was nowhere to be seen. Do you know where that mage went? I don't know. Yilin made an innocent expression. I'll look for him when I have time. Besides, it's not like you don't know dash. Yilin paused for a moment, and her smile became brighter. I spent the whole winter in the mine. Bai Runding left. Yilin had already seen it. She is indeed a drunkard. She came to see the Supreme Mage. It is very possible that Bai Runding was pushed out by others. They all suspected that the Supreme Mage was taken away by Yilin. But there is no evidence, so we can only assume that this is the case. Really? After a few days, Bai Runding did not break his promise and completed the remaining tasks of collecting cards in the community center. Overnight, in the corner of Yilin Farm, a dilapidated house with only its foundation left was renovated by a mysterious power and turned into a brand new greenhouse. It's Janimo. The Supreme Mage walked around the new greenhouse a few times and expressed his thoughts. Actually, what exactly is a Janimo? When Yilin asked this question, the Supreme Mage shook his head. I have never seen it. In the past 20 years, I have accidentally collected ancient books from museums and found clues about Janimo. It is recorded in it that Janimo comes from different places. Dimension, they are elves in the forest and will only be seen by those who are close to nature. At that time, I thought that the key to leaving this place lay in Janimos, so I studied them tirelessly. The implication of the Supreme Mage is that now that he has found the crystal pattern technique, Janimo has become dispensable. Community centers reopen. Lewis personally took Marnie and other residents to hold a grand opening ceremony. At the moment when Bai Runding completed the task of collecting cards, it is said that a meteor fell that night and hit the community center, giving this old house in a deserted village a new look. The next day, various mysterious and strange legends were spread in Gugu town. But the result was good. The community center turned into an activity center for the elderly in an instant. Louis and Marnie held hands, side by side, and played games inside every day. Yulin is not free. On the second day after the greenhouse opened, Yulin carefully planted the 3 ancient seeds and waited for them to bloom and bear fruit. Speaking of which, when Yulin was planting fruit, she remembered that there was another epic fruit in her backpack, obtained from the 100th floor of the mine. He tried to stuff the star fruit into the seed generation machine to see if he could turn a fruit into a continuously regenerating epic seed. Unfortunately, he failed. I don't know why, but I can't get it in. When Yulin was at a loss, the mage came over and snatched the epic fruit from Yulin's hand, holding it in his hand and pondering it carefully. This is not a fruit, the supreme mage said, preparing to bite it into his mouth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 665. Go away. Since it's not fruit, what are you going to eat? Yulin had been getting along with the Supreme Mage for a while, but she still didn't know his greedy nature. Just when the Supreme Mage was about to stuff the epic fruit into his mouth, Yulin, with his quick eyes and quick hands, snatched it back. The Supreme Mage didn't mind either. His expression was as usual and he wasn't angry because of Yulin's rudeness. He stroked his beard that had been in disrepair for a long time and said with a smile, "This thing that looks like fruit is actually made of pure energy." "You mean, it wasn't grown?" "No." The Supreme Mage's tone was very certain. Yulin nodded. The next second, he ate the star fruit in one bite. Holy shit! Farmer! How can you be so insidious? The Sorcerer Supreme's eyes widened. Yulin wiped her mouth. It seems that there is no dash. He hasn't finished speaking yet. The fruit of the star melts in your mouth. A stream of sour and refreshing heat rushed straight to the Tianling cap. In the dark, he felt that his brain seemed to be stretched open by something. After a while, after all the strange feelings disappeared, Yulin finally said what he said halfway, "It seems to have no taste, just an ordinary fruit." "Real? How could I lie to you? No one knows taste better than me," Yulin said to the Supreme Mage confidently. The Supreme Mage was relieved. He doesn't care whether it's energy or not. He just wanted to taste what that fruit would taste like in his stomach. Influenced by Yulin's various delicacies here, his taste buds had become much more sophisticated than before, and he had learned to actively seek out different delicacies. Yulin was fooling the Supreme Mage. He opened the Apostle panel. Yulin was certain that that epic fruit must have brought about some kind of change. It was a feeling that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Really? Yulin discovered the problem at a glance. No big problem elsewhere. Only psychic energy is worth that column. Psychic energy value 2335/2335. Except for the laughing mask parasitizing on the face, the 5% increase in spiritual power brought by the mental attribute bonus, and the increase in the epic title Shadow Warlock, the spiritual power has increased by an additional 10%. It took Yulin about a second to quickly calculate the result. 10% increase in psychic energy value. And, most likely it's permanent. Otherwise, I would be sorry for this epic level card. Yulin clenched his fist. This fruit was almost swallowed by the increasingly shameless mage. Fortunately, I have quick hands. Thank you, Xiao. Yulin appeared calm on the surface to avoid the Supreme Mage becoming jealous. Secretly, he was enjoying himself, thinking about what kind of skill combos he could perform with this equivalent amount of spiritual energy. There are too many skills and countless ways to combo. This Shinnik value seems a little outrageous. Once upon a time, This was a level that he could not reach even when he activated the bloodthirsty disaster. Now it is achieved under normal circumstances. Have a big dinner tonight, Yilin felt that she should celebrate. Okay. Wait, why? The Supreme Mage looked confused. You don't want to eat? Yilin asked. No, please hold me to death. The Supreme Mage floats in the air, sitting cross-legged, with a sincere and serious expression. Ah! Ho 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 ho! Go, go, go! Quick! Oil presses number 1 to 10 are ready. Put down a batch of truffles quickly. The egg yolk machines from the 18th to the 27th are ready. Put down a batch of fruits quickly. Truffles. The pigs in the field are full of truffles. Go and pick them up. Go rush. You get busy first, I'll go to the Skull Cave to mine iridium ore. On the second day of spring, Yilin and the Supreme Mage worked together seamlessly and began an exciting farm life. After the card collection task is completed, the bus is unlocked. At 9:30 in the morning, the bus started. There was no one in the driver's seat. But the moment Yilin stepped on the bus started to start. In a blink of an eye, he entered a tunnel of strange lights and strange things. After a while, Yilin's eyes suddenly opened up and she came to a desert area. God knows where on the island this desert is located. This island is full of weirdness. When Yilin explored the map, she clearly didn't see this desert. Following the desert map given by Malong, Yilin quickly found the location of the Skull Cave. Along the way, Yilin was sparkling with lightning, rubbing circles and practicing, and collected a lot of cactus and coconut. Huh? Coconut? The coconut chicken looks like it can be stewed. But Jill has been raised in the chicken coop for a short time, and now she can still produce eggs steadily, it's so distressing. Well, there is actually a store in this crappy place. The door is an advanced electric door. Yilin walked into the store with a sullen expression. What's outrageous is that it even has air conditioning. The technology tree in this Nongpo Valley is weird. Welcome to the oasis. The store was empty. Behind the counter, a red-haired woman with heavy makeup, a hot figure and little clothing showed a bright smile at first. When she saw Yilin, she couldn't help but frown, but she held it back and was squeezed into the room. He smiled and said the opening words again. Do you want to buy something? If you don't want to buy anything, please get out of here. Otherwise, I will call the police. Yilin skillfully took out a diamond and stuffed it into the woman's hand. My name is Sandy, owner of the Oasis store, happy to serve you. Sandy's face suddenly changed from red to pink, and her smile was as bright as a flower. Yilin finally enjoyed normal customer treatment and started shopping. While scrolling through the shopping list, Yilin noticed a new variety that was not sold in Gugu Town. Carambola seeds. Seed price 400 G. Growth cycle summer, 13 days. Crop price normal, 750 G, silver, 937 G, gold, 1125 G. Unlock recipe none. So expensive. One carambola seed costs 400 G. But Yilin began to calculate in her mind the profit from brewing wine. Generally speaking, the more expensive fruits are thrown into wine barrels, the higher the price of the final fruit wine produced. Now winemaking accounts for a large share of revenue in Yilin's entire business chain. Although the price of starfruit seeds is outrageous, before ancient fruit can be grown in large quantities, it is not a bad idea to use starfruit as a transition to winemaking. The more Yilin thought about it, the more she felt that the starfruit seeds in front of her looked a bit delicate. All in all, the future is promising. As the 3-year period approaches, every farmer is increasingly aware of how heavy a mountain that 30 million assets is. The development of Yilin's farm is now on the right track, but there is still a long way to go before it can reach 30 million in assets. Bought it? Yilin gritted her teeth and bought a batch of carambola seeds. Now, Yulin finally understood the role of the seed-generating machine. It's about saving money. When money is tight, using a seed generator to make the first few batches of seeds will undoubtedly save a lot of planting costs. Although starfruit seeds can only be planted in summer, after unlocking the greenhouse, the crops grown in the greenhouse are no longer restricted by seasons, and anything can be grown. It's a pity that Robin can't expand the greenhouse, otherwise Yulin will have to spend a lot of money to cover the entire farm within the scope of the greenhouse. After buying starfruit seeds, Yulin entered the Skull Cave. The so-called Skull Cave looks more like an ancient tomb to Yulin. The cave is surrounded by walls and stone bricks covered with a thick layer of dust. No one has visited it for who knows how many years. In the center, there is an altar with a keyhole. After inserting the skull key, Yulin's feet fell into the air and fell downwards. When he came back to his senses, Yulin was already in the tomb. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Ho 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 ho. Chirp chirp chirp. Beetle. Large slime. Purple slime. Magma bat. Mummy. Flying snake. In the tomb, the four walls were lit with dim candlelight, and the atmosphere was breathtaking. As soon as Yulin fell from the cave above her head, a mighty legion of monsters rushed towards Yulin shamelessly, as if they wanted to kill the intruder to pieces. None of the monsters would have expected that the person who broke into the cemetery again after many years would not be a weak scum like Ma Long, but a big demon king from another world. She looks so cute. Yulin smiled kindly, showing 2 rows of white teeth in the dim candlelight. Night. Yulin returned home dusty. The Supreme Mage was not lazy, he was running around the farm howling like crazy. Even the Cloak Master's labor force was not spared, floating over the farm, with a lot of goods carried on the cloak. Really not bad. With the help of the Supreme Mage for free, the task of obtaining 30 million assets within 3 years is guaranteed. After dinner, the tired two began to communicate daily. By the way, I'm very surprised. You said that when you cast spells, you often need to borrow the power of those big guys. Yulin thought of a question that he had wanted to ask for a long time, but even if the power you borrow is for them, it's not worth mentioning, but it won't be without cost, right? Yes, the Supreme Mage didn't hide it, we, the mage, provide them with faith. And as a true mage, we are already mentally prepared when we come into contact with them. If you want to use their power, you will be burdened with different burdens. Bad luck. Bad luck. Haha, the Supreme Mage smiled. Among the mages, some people suffer from gastric ulcers that will never heal, some people can't sleep all night, some people have to drink 3 gallons of goat's milk every day, some people have to have a haircut every month out of 50 grams of nails. Stop, stop, stop. Yulin couldn't listen anymore and asked with a strange look on his face, a little uncertain, why do I sound like those big guys you are talking about are all perverts? To play with human beings is fun? What use are these costs to them? In their eyes, human beings are humble and insignificant existences. They exist forever. In their long lives, this is the only price that may bring them trivial pleasure. I think this is why they make us bear the burden. The reason for these bad luck. Yulin was at a loss for words. In the end, she could only sigh softly, put on the hanging ring, smoothly drew a complete circle, and threw in all the garbage after the meal. On the other side of the circle, Yulin doesn't know where it leads, so we'll talk about it after losing it. Pathetic humans. The next day. In Louise's small garden, the fresh daisies that had just been planted were ravaged by a pile of domestic garbage. It is said that he was attacked by a garbage maniac late at night. This incident caused an uproar in Gugu Town that day. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 666. The Supreme Mage and Yulin have become more friendly. He often brags in front of Yulin how powerful the enemies he faced back then were, gods from different dimensions, and he moved around like a snake, circling among them. It is said that when the Sorcerer Supreme was at his peak, he cast many spells at will. Versix Thunder, Energy Wave Attack. Siderax Crimson Girdle, binds enemies. The Seven Rings of Ragator, Absolute Defense. Monsoon's Banishment, Absolute Attack. In addition to this, there are Time Retrieval, Invisibility, Penetration, Perception, Telepathy, and so on. Although Yulin felt that the Supreme Mage was bragging, he was still jealous. A variety of attack methods, techniques that do not rely on crystals to release attacks, make Yulin very greedy. Too many skills to overwhelm. But every time Yulin made a request, saying that she wanted to learn, the Supreme Mage shook his head. Drawing circles is the basis of all spells. Let's wait until you have mastered this technique. No matter what delicacies Yulin tried to tempt, the Supreme Mage would not let go. In desperation, Yulin could only concentrate on polishing the foundation before taking the next step. Before the end of spring. Thanks to the efforts of the two farmers, Yulin's assets exceeded 10 million G. Congratulations to Nongzong Yulin for his total assets exceeding 10,000,000 G. The level is upgraded to Nongzun. Please keep up the good work. The farmer is a strong man. Yulin's heart was completely calm. He seemed to understand something. No matter how much money you have, once you reach a certain level, it's just a numbers game. The powerful farmer unlocked a device called the farm computer. It sounds high-end, but to put it bluntly, it is just a panel. When you open it, you can see the real-time broadcast of the machines on standby and working in the farm, which is more convenient for the management of huge farms. Now Yulin is concentrating on brushing the skull mines, grinding more iridium ores and grinding the gem duplication machine, and almost all the farms are left to the Supreme Mage to take care of. The Supreme Mage struggled in front of the farm computer for a while, and quickly mastered the usage of the farm computer. This guy seems to be very familiar with using electronic products. Yulin nodded secretly. With a total asset of 10 million, he was far ahead in the farmer rankings, which made Yulin look at the other 4 people below him and feel like he was in the cold. It is estimated that it will be difficult for others to catch up with my progress. After all, Yulin brought helpers and cheated. If they could catch up, Yulin would have to wonder if the others were cheating. All kinds of equipment filled Yulin's storage space. After a spring, starfruit and ancient fruit were mixed in the greenhouse, and the wine was produced well. Yulin no longer even looked down on the little income from fishing. This opportunity should be left to others. There's no need to be too desperate when it comes to being a human being. Summer is coming. Yulin's entire farm is almost full of starfruit. There are carambola seedlings all over the mountains and fields, acres and acres of fields, fully automatic irrigation with iridium water ingots, various kinds of scarecrow dolls fluttering in the wind, rows of fragrant honeycombs, fruit trees with strong fruits, and fish in the river trying to die. Playing in front of Yulin. Yulin gradually got used to the existence of this farm. Accustomed to farm life. I'm used to drawing circles and throwing trash everywhere. I am used to discussing knowledge with the Supreme Mage. All of this allowed Yulin to temporarily forget about the doomsday crisis in the real world. Here, Yulin is enjoying, vacationing, improving, and learning. He was like a hermit, living from morning to morning, gathering honey and leisurely seeing chrysanthemums in the shade. On a hot summer day, birds chirp and cicadas chirp. Summer passes and autumn comes. Autumn is crisp. Yulin's assets exceeded 17 million. His greenhouse is filled with ancient fruits. There are also ancient fruits planted outside. The entire cellar is brewing ancient fruit wine. Another very large cellar is filled with gem duplication machines. Each gem duplication machine produces one perfect grade crystal every day. The 4 chicken coops are filled with void chicken, old duck, pink rabbit, and ostrich. There are 4 cows' heads, with sheep, cows, and pigs waiting to be fed. The cat, Xiaomeng, is in estrus, and he found another little female cat from nowhere. Obviously both cats are female. Yulin watched the 2 female cats cuddling together, which made Yulin feel that her outlook on life had changed dramatically. Xiao Xiao has also gained weight. Because he has not exercised for too long, he lies in the luxurious solid wood fully automatic feeding stable every day, burping, and his fighting spirit has been sapped by the good life. The old man is restless and aims at the present moment. Winter. The 5 apostles met together. No one mentioned the mission. They just got together and had a hot pot meal at Bai Runding's farm. Although Yulin's hands were itchy, in order to avoid the secret of the effect of the food he made, he could only suppress the urge to cook and eat the not-so-delicious food they made. As the mission deadline is approaching, everyone's thoughts have changed differently. In fact, at this point, I have no idea whether I can earn enough 30 million before 3 years. As they drank and drank, and the atmosphere was harmonious, they accidentally chatted about interesting things in the town. Wangabe finally met a resident named Penny and got a marriage certificate. During their late-night tryst, they were spotted by Big Mouth Vincent. Vincent told everyone he met that Penny and Wang Ji would climb trees late at night. Legend has it that the sapling tree that Penny once climbed left 2 round indentations on it. I don't know how to climb it. Penny climbing a tree is famous. Another thing is that Kiajia supermarket, which almost drove Pippa to a dead end, closed down this fall for some unknown reason, leaving only a ruin. When she heard the news, Yulin's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't say much. Perhaps, they all know that it is very likely that one of them took down Chiao's supermarket during a certain side mission, but no one has revealed it. It is said that in order to celebrate afterwards, Pippi offered a 50% discount on all seeds, which lasted for a full hour. After dinner, the 5 people in the party waved goodbye to each other and went back to their respective farms to continue having fun. When do you plan to leave? Everything is ready, all it takes is the finishing touch. Yulin looked at the calm mage who was busy in the cowshed, caressing the sheep's hair from time to time, and suddenly asked this question. The movement of the supreme mage stroking the wool suddenly stopped. He looked at Yulin deeply, then shook his head. Don't be in a hurry, get ready later. Good. So many days have accumulated. Yulin's storage space is no longer full of perfect crystals. He looked for Robin again. Another cellar was built. The cellar is filled with perfect crystals. In the past, perfect crystals were measured by pieces, but now, they have to be weighed by tons. Period. When Yulin was cleaning the skull mine, a new material was accidentally revealed. Colorful fragments. According to the attribute description, it seems to be an ultra-rare material. President Malone of the Adventurers Guild, when he saw this colorful fragment, he was so frightened that he slipped off the massage chair for the elderly with a shocked expression. For the sake of the gift, Ma Long told Yulin a shocking secret. Following Ma Long's instructions, Yulin found an altar in the desert with 3 stone pillars beside it. Third from the left, third from the right, press the pattern on the stone pillar at 9 o'clock, oh, there it is. Click, click, click. After stuffing the colorful fragments into the groove, there was a vibration. A large sword with a domineering shape appeared in the center of the altar. Why is it a sword again? Yulin covered her forehead, a little disappointed. He thought it was some kind of treasure. To take a step back, he wouldn't mind having another starfruit. He hadn't tasted the starfruit last time yet. She felt a pity secretly in her heart, but Yulin still put away the big sword honestly. Not taking the equipment if you have it is the behavior of a bastard. Galaxy Sword. Grade Rare. Durability 1000/1000. Effect Star Power. After activation, a star will be condensed around you every 1 minute, and the star protection will increase the strength and agility attributes by 2% respectively, and can be stacked up to 10 times. Stars can attack as projectiles, but their attribute bonuses will be reduced accordingly. Duration, 30 minutes. Cooling time, 48 hours. Instructions. Click to view details. Huh? Good guy. When Yulin saw the properties of this galaxy sword, he felt numb. This attribute is comparable to low-grade epic equipment. Similar to the Scarlet Butcher knife, the effect of this galaxy sword far exceeds the ordinary rare level, but for some reasons, it cannot be rated as epic level, which is embarrassing. But this does not hinder the fact that this great sword has very excellent properties. This is a half-step epic. Yulin sighed and put away the galaxy sword. The attribute bonuses of epic level equipment are permanently solidified. The attribute bonuses of the best rare equipment are all expressed in the form of equipment skills. It is equivalent to squeezing the potential of this piece of equipment into that short half hour, bursting out light and heat. Which one is better or worse depends on the situation. After getting the equipment, Yulin's life got back on track. Before winter ends. One day. With the diligent efforts of the Supreme Mage, Yulin was suddenly awakened by the sound of an upgrade while taking a nap in front of the stove. Congratulations to Nongzun Yulin for her total assets exceeding 20,000,000 G. The level is upgraded to Farmer Saint. Please keep up the good work. Ah, this? Why is he a farmer? How sudden? Yulin estimated that it was most likely that the Supreme Mage was not a man of martial ethics and was still at the liver farm while he was taking a nap. So Yulin quietly set off and found the mage in the wine cellar. The dedicated man in cloak is working hard to carry bottles of freshly barreled ancient fruit wine and stuff them into the shipping box. The Supreme Mage was sitting in the corner of the cellar, and the shadow blended with him. Yulin stepped forward and heard the Supreme Mage sighing. As the time limit for the Supreme Mage's departure approached, Yulin also noticed that after winter, something was wrong with the Supreme Mage's behavior pattern. It seems very lively. Even Yulin was slightly frightened when she saw that kind of explosive energy with blood in her eyes. Yulin put on the hanging ring. He casually opened a small circle at hand, and what was connected behind the circle was the refrigerator. Yulin took out a bottle of iced ancient fruit wine from the dimensional channel, smiled and put it on the Supreme Mage's face. The sudden stimulation made the Supreme Mage almost hold back and shake a piece of Bizak's thunder at Yulin, but luckily he held it back. What's the matter? You've stayed in this crappy place for 20 years, but you don't want to leave. The Supreme Mage bit open the wine cork with a pop, and a mouthful of hundreds of grams of ancient fruit wine poured into his throat. When you are rich, you are arrogant, and you don't feel bad at all when you drink it. After drinking a whole bottle of ancient fruit wine in one gulp, the Supreme Mage, with red eyes, told Yulin a secret that had been buried in his heart for more than 20 years. Hiccup, I doubt it, I have a daughter in town. The mage was drunk. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 667. That night. It's 10 o'clock sharp. Gugu Town. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse. The town that had just snowed was covered with a thick layer of snow-white clothes. Under the bright moon, two figures were sneaking through the night, floating in the air. One of the figures was swaying, as if it would crash at any time, and even belched wine from time to time, which was like a big fart and extremely loud. The bright moonlight fell, casting a mottled shadow in the Gugu Town cemetery. The shadows of the trees swayed, and the words on the tombstone seemed to come alive, and everything was mysterious and gloomy. A girl with long purple hair was wandering around the cemetery holding a flashlight. She squatted down, stood up, and squatted down again from time to time. It turned out that she was digging snow roots in the cemetery. Are you sure she is my daughter? Hiccup. The Supreme Mage squinted and seemed unable to see clearly the figure on the snow, but the bright purple color made him a little suspicious. When Yulin heard this, she had a strange expression and secretly thought, your own daughter can't be sure, so let me be sure, are you looking for your daughter or am I looking for my daughter? After hesitating for a moment, seeing that the Supreme Mage was mentally broken and drunk, Yulin floated cross-legged in the air and said softly, according to my understanding and reasoning, if you insist on saying that your daughter is among so many residents, you can only it's her. By the way, Yulin observed 3 seconds of silence for poor honest man Pierre. The expensive ancient fruit wine became the helpless mage's only support at this moment. He was silent for a while, not knowing where to put his hands, so he could only take another big mouthful. Can't you confirm your magic? Yulin knew that the Supreme Mage knew a lot of secret arts, but she didn't know whether the omnipotent magic he said could be used to recognize relatives. Yes, the Supreme Mage suddenly realized. He seemed to have never remembered his mage identity until now, and nodded quickly, I need one of her hairs. Yulin nodded, activated following like a shadow and got closer. He waved his hand and pulled out a long purple hair from Abigail's head with a bang sound. Abigail, who was playing in the cemetery, felt her scalp itching. She reached out and touched it, but didn't pay attention. Supreme Mage Parkinson's hand clenched the long hair, his eyes were red, like a gambler who lost everything in the casino. I saw him holding the hair tightly, meditating for more than 10 seconds with his eyes closed, and then opened his eyes. For a moment, the Supreme Mage's eyes flashed with complex emotions such as exclamation, regret, and sudden realization. He lowered his head with a low expression, she is indeed my daughter. Yulin smiled and said, oh, that's awesome. You can also recognize relatives with magic. Please teach me when you have time. The Supreme Mage stared at Yulin with bloodshot eyes. He couldn't tell that this hateful farmer was teasing him. Normally, when there was no threat of delicious food, he would definitely fight back mercilessly, but now he was in no mood. Yulin couldn't understand the mage's mood at the moment. After all, he didn't have a daughter, nor did he become a father out of nowhere. In this situation, what should I say to encourage or comfort the master? Can this feeling be remembered in retrospect? Is it just that I didn't pay attention at the time? No good, not suitable for the occasion. Are you crying to take back the grass you planted? It's not appropriate either, the mage might get angry. Congratulations on becoming a father? It seems that this does not sound like a good thing. Do you still remember the mother of the child by the mage tower by the forest lake? After saying this, the mage would probably start a fight with him on the spot. After thinking for a long time, Yulin didn't know what to say and could only remain silent. After a while, the mage finally plucked up the courage. With a flick of his cloak, he swooped down like a fighter jet with the accelerator pressed to the bottom. Bang! The mage crawled out of the snowdrift in embarrassment. Yulin covered his eyes speechlessly, he really couldn't watch. The old father's way of appearing is really unique. The sudden movement behind her startled the purple-haired girl who was exploring the cemetery. The Supreme Mage arched his back, stood up slowly, and exhaled a breath of turbid alcohol. To be honest, Abigail is indeed as her mother Caroline described, very bold, and also likes some weird things. Faced with this weird situation, a normal girl's normal reaction would be to scream in surprise, then run away in a coquettish way. But instead of running away, Abigail's eyes lit up and she cautiously took a few steps closer to the location where the mage crashed. Who are you? Abigail asked curiously. You, Dad, oh shit. The mage, who was usually good at quarreling, was as clumsy as a moron at the moment, stammering incoherently and unable to formulate a complete sentence of I am actually your real father for a long time. Abigail shrank her neck, as if she was frightened by the mage. Yulin couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't bear to let the mage face such an important moment alone. He quietly came nearby, coughed twice, and said with a smile, Abigail, why don't you go home? Are you talking to me again? Mom had a fight. Uncle Farmer, Yulin had a good impression of Caroline's family of three. Abigail was not wary of Yulin and smiled. No, Dad said he wanted to chat with Mom in the room. It would be a little loud and he asked me to come out and play. Yulin and the mage looked at each other, speechless. Abigail kicked the snow around her feet, lowered her head and said, "But let me tell you quietly, Mommy doesn't like chatting with Daddy the most. She said Daddy can't continue chatting for 2 minutes. It's really boring." Yulin silently glanced at the mage again. The mage shook his head and glared, as if to say, "It's not important, don't look at me." Yulin sighed softly and decided to help the mage who was not clever with his words smooth things over. "Abigail, this grandpa, oh no, this uncle, is helping on my farm now. He is such a nice person." Abigail tilted her head and looked up and down, her hands trembling and her eyes shining. The unshaven Supreme Mage hesitated for a moment and said cautiously, "You can't tell." The Supreme Mage was very hurt at the side. He picked up the cold snow and poured it into his mouth. I say if. Yulin felt that her tone was like a strange uncle who coaxed an ignorant girl. If there is a vast world outside Gugu Town, there are people who can fly and people who breathe fire. Birds, flowers spraying water, and many things you have never seen before. Do you want to take a look? Think. Abigail smiled happily. Yulin glanced at the mage and asked again, "What if the price is that you can never come back here again?" Abigail was stunned. She lowered her head and thought for a moment. When she raised her head again, her eyes were bright. "Can you bring Mom and Dad with you?" Yulin shook his head, "No." "Forget it," Abigail pouted, seeming a little unhappy and a little regretful. "It's pretty good here." Yulin wanted to ask anything else. However, the Supreme Mage used his scarred hands to grasp Yulin's clothes tremblingly. "Let's go." Abigail looked at the two figures gradually disappearing in the dark night and snow, and whispered, "What a strange uncle. Is this really good?" Along the way, the mage remained silent. He didn't even answer Yulin's words. No explanation why. He put on his cloak and flew towards the farm in a daze. Even his hands and feet seemed to be broken, hanging limply, allowing the cloaked man to hang the expressionless Supreme Mage back to the farm like a seduction. Later, the Supreme Mage soaked in the cellar day and night and became extremely drunk. For the rest of the winter, the Sorcerer Supreme seemed to turn into a wine barrel. Never left the cellar. Until the spring of the third year. The third year, a new spring. Yulin stretched and walked out of the room at 6 o'clock in the morning as usual. The Supreme Mage, who had been working as a wine barrel for several days, actually woke up today. He was currently in front of the mirror, trimming his beard carefully and using high-grade hair wax to carefully comb the curly hair on his head. His whole body was glowing with new brilliance. "Figured out." Yulin came behind the Supreme Mage and asked with a smile. Is this really good?" "That's it." The corners of the Supreme Mage's mouth raised slightly, he shook his right hand, and the cloak took the initiative to be draped on his shoulders. I saw him floating slowly, his face radiant, and his whole body exuding a mysterious and elegant aura. "Now that you have mastered the basics of mage skillfully, starting from today, our course will enter the next new stage." As the mage spoke, he shook and pulled his hands, and two complex magic arrays appeared out of thin air between his palms, like two small shields. Since Yulin's assets exceeded 20 million and he was upgraded to farm saint, his life on the farm was basically over. Even if he followed the rules and played casually for a year, his winemaking output alone would be more than 10 million. To be honest, this trial is not difficult. With a little digging in the mines, finding the right way to fish, and finding a mage to help you, you can easily pass this nightmare level trial. It's really not too difficult. In order not to appear so outrageous in the farmer rankings, Yulin began to store the wine produced in his cellar from the spring of the third year into old wine, but did not sell it, so as not to scare other people. He has a bigger headache now. Yulin walked to another luxurious house with a more spacious cellar. Walking into the cellar, at a glance, the cellar of nearly 1,000 square meters is densely packed with gem copying machines, which produce several boxes of perfect crystals every day. They are piled on the floor. Yulin's storage space has already been there's just not enough room for that many crystals. Yulin didn't know what to use the extra crystals for, it was so painful. But this is convenient for the Supreme Mage. When he was practicing, he didn't even have to think about consumption. He just asked Mr. Cloak to go into the crystal cellar, take a bag of crystals from the pile on the ground, take out 1,800 kilograms of crystals, and put them in the open space of the farm to play with slowly. After tossing and turning, the Supreme Mage had a great time. A formulaic life makes it difficult to feel the passage of time. Both Yulin and the Supreme Mage have almost mastered each other's knowledge, at least in theory. Why do you say almost? Take Yulin as an example. Yulin knows the principles of how mages release all spells. But unlike the mage, he lacks the admiration and understanding of those high-ranking bosses. In the words of the Supreme Mage, if you want to borrow the power of big bosses such as Wei Shandy and Dormammu, you must first understand it, worship it, please it, and go deep into it. Otherwise, the big guys won't look down on you. Spring passes and summer solstice passes, summer passes, and autumn comes. In the blink of an eye, there is not much time left before this trial is over. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xuexi. Chapter 668. Anyway. Under the guidance of the Supreme Mage, Yulin wore a hanging ring on her hand and tried to maintain more than 5 circles at the same time. She felt bored and asked casually. How did you let someone else, get pregnant with Abigail? Yulin is not a gossip person. But he couldn't help it. This question has been lingering in his mind for a long time. The beard of the Supreme Mage twitched slightly. A brief look of embarrassment appeared on his face. But after a moment, the Supreme Mage figured it out and was no longer embarrassed. He shook his head helplessly. Once upon a time, there was a mage from another dimension. It was a spring, at dusk. He is speaking in the third person. It seems that in this way, we can better express the old stories buried in our hearts for 20 years. The Supreme Mage told his story in a sensational tone. That was the 48th day that the mage was trapped in this world. He discovered the existence of Janimo, and he was researching it tirelessly. Janimo. But that day, the mage finally couldn't stand it any longer and went crazy. Obsessed. Yulin thought this word was strange. But he didn't interrupt the mage's story. An innocent and beautiful girl accidentally came near the mage tower. She has a jewel-like face and long dark green hair, which is fluttering in the wind. She is very beautiful. Then. The mage lost his mind that day, and the girl was full of enthusiasm. After all, when he was young, the mage was quite handsome. The lives of handsome men and beautiful women accidentally intersected by fate. The Supreme Mage vividly made a gesture, complex gestures. The 2 little fingers are intertwined, the ring finger, middle finger, and index finger are held empty, and the thumbs of both hands are moved bit by bit. Shameless. Roll. As they talked, the 2 began to curse. Hey, Yulin raised his eyebrows and waved the finger with the hanging ring at the feet of the Supreme Mage. Holy fuck! The Supreme Mage gasped, and the next second, a circle of light appeared under his feet and disappeared into the farm. Go free fall. Yulin refocused on practicing magic. He had long wanted to do this to the mage and let him experience the feeling of free fall. 1 minute later. The Sorcerer Supreme stepped out of another circle of light angrily. He grabbed a handful of perfect crystals from his arms and threw them into the air like jelly beans. Magic Crystal Art Bozak's Thunder. A pile of perfect crystals shattered luxuriously in front of the mage, and the light from the shattered crystals reunited into streaks of orange-red lightning, striking Yulin from all directions. You can't afford it, right? Yulin was stunned. He didn't expect the Supreme Mage to be so angry. He didn't dare to be careless. Bozak's Thunder is a commonly used attack spell by the Supreme Mage. It hurt a lot, so Yulin didn't say anything, imitating the gestures of the Supreme Mage, and generously sprinkled a handful of perfect crystals. Free method: 7 circles. 7 layers of obscure and mysterious magic array appeared out of thin air in front of Yulin, going deep into the layers and easily blocking the orange-red thunder and lightning. That's the 7 circles of Ragator. Damn farmer, you have to respect the original. When the Supreme Mage heard that Yulin had changed his name at will, his eyes widened and his beard stiffened with anger. Just as Yulin and the Supreme Mage spent more than a year learning new skills from each other's knowledge, fighting each other half jokingly, half seriously, and bickering, the two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding, and at the same time, they looked forward to each other. Toward the farm. Someone. The Supreme Mage looked solemn, stopped making trouble, and looked at Yulin. Do you want to hide? No, at this time, the Supreme Mage had nothing to hide. Yulin shook his head and frowned slightly. It smells of blood. The two scholars fell back to the ground from the air and put away their magical powers. A dark-skinned girl with short hair, covered in blood and pale, stumbled in. It's a lot of money. The moment Yulin saw Qianduoduo from a distance, her first reaction was, we haven't seen him for a while, why is he so dark? It seems that she is really hard-working, she works so hard, it's touching. Qianduoduo saw Yulin standing with another man in a field of pumpkin seedlings from 100 meters away. She quickened her pace and came to Yulin, breathing heavily. She was paralyzed and sat on the ground, her expression first filled with joy. Just when he was about to say something, Qianduoduo suddenly noticed that the purple-haired and bearded man standing next to Yulin seemed familiar. Fa, master. Didn't you say he is dead? I am dead? When the Supreme Mage heard this, he was suddenly startled. When did I die? Why didn't anyone notify me when I died? He suddenly came back to life. Ahem, it's not important. Yulin ignored the mage's angry eyes behind her that seemed to burn everything, and looked at Qianduoduo covered in blood with a calm expression, thoughtfully, finally took action. Is it Wangabe? Or Yan Cao? You. Qianduoduo glared. She subconsciously wanted to ask how do you know, but when she noticed Yulin's sure enough expression, she figured everything out in just 3 seconds. Gritting his teeth, thinking of what he had experienced in the mine, he subconsciously felt a little angry. Did you already know this? Yulin shook his head and chuckled. It seems that this peaceful farm life has been enough to smooth out your claws. Have you almost forgotten your true identity? Qianduoduo's expression was slightly startled. You can tell by looking at the farmer rankings that Wangabe and Yan Cao have their own plans. They haven't put much thought into their respective farms. According to this progress, it is basically impossible to complete the task within the time limit. Here, we will achieve the goal of 30 million assets. In addition, you have formed a team to go to the mines and have a certain understanding of each other's skills. The conclusion is very simple. Just find a time and do it when you are relaxed. You can easily complete the task. Why bother to go there? Liver. Qianduoduo was speechless. She looked ashamed. Yulin was right. During this period of time, the peaceful farm life almost made Qianduoduo forget that he was an apostle who had survived various cruel trials. Moreover, there was a time when the 4 of Qianduoduo, under the pressure brought by Yulin, often formed a team to go to the mines. Facing more and more mobs, they inadvertently exposed their respective abilities. Qianduoduo never expected that Yan Cao would suddenly attack them when they were going down to the mine and punch them hard in the back. Please, I know I can't do it. I was wrong. Qianduoduo instantly understood the situation, tears welling up in her eyes. She bit her lower lip hard and begged in a low voice, "It's sister, run, sister, run. Send me out of the mine. She and that damn Yan Cao are still fighting in the mine. I know you are awesome, you must be hiding your strength, please help sister, run, don't let her die. One condition." Yilin thought about it, it was just a matter of effort, he already had a plan in mind. Don't negotiate terms at this time. Qianduoduo opened his mouth and coughed up a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that he was attacked by Yan Cao and was seriously injured. She grabbed Yilin and shouted as she walked, "I promise you. Hurry up, no more ink stains, no matter what, I promise you anything. Call out." Yilin's pupils shrank suddenly, and in the distance, there was a faint sound of sharp piercing the air. Yilin barely hesitated and slapped Qianduoduo with his palm, sending the confused Qianduoduo flying several meters away. Qianduoduo's thin and delicate body has not yet touched the ground. Boom! A stream of air passed by Yilin, followed by a deafening loud noise. At the position where Qianduoduo had stopped half a second ago, a terrifying stream of air swept across the melon seedlings and half-ripe pumpkins on the farm. Overwhelmed and thrown away. After the storm calmed down, only a circular pit about 1 meter in diameter was left on the spot. The edge of the circular pit is as smooth as a mirror, and there are no cracks around the edge. I don't know what kind of bullet could leave such a strange mark. This direction is. Yilin turned to look in the direction of the attack. It was a stretch of mountains, and the peak closest to Yilin farm was about 2 kilometers away. It's a sniper. Qianduoduo lay on the ground with her butt raised. She had no time to think about whether this posture was shameful or whether it would be misunderstood. She stared dumbfoundedly at the pumpkin patch that had been blasted into a deep crater. Her mouth grew into a big 8 shape, as if she wanted to swallow something. She still couldn't figure it out. If Yilin hadn't pushed her at the critical moment, she would have ascended to heaven. With the power of the sniper bullet, she didn't think she could survive intact after withstanding this shot. No, this shot. This shot is so terrifying. Qianduoduo suddenly remembered that when teaming up to go to the mine, Wangabe, who used 2 small daggers to draw water all day long, reacted immediately. It's that damn king next door who hides his strength. His real ability is powerful sniping from a long distance. No wonder Wangabe, who was so weak all day long, was still smiling and saying nothing when Yan Cao laughed at him. I see. I see. That's so. Qianduoduo suddenly understood. Why are the people I met in this trial more sinister than the last? Can you still farm, harvest vegetables, raise pigs, walk horses, fish, and mine? At the moment when his farm suffered a terrorist attack, the mage reacted simultaneously and floated in mid-air. His wrists lit up a ring of magic arrays, and he raised a defensive shield between his palms to guard against the shells that would attack the farm again at any time. Yilin frowned. He lifted Qianduoduo's neck, which was still lying motionless on the ground, put on the hanging ring, and with a wave of his hand, a circle of light appeared in front of Yilin. I'll be back as soon as I go. Yilin stepped into the circle of light with Qianduoduo looking shocked. The next second, he had disappeared into the farm. 2 kilometers away. On a mountain peak. Between the trees. Wangabe held his left hand in an OK shape and pressed it in front of his left eye. He squinted his eyes and took in everything that happened in Yilin's farm from a distance of 2 kilometers. On his right shoulder, there was an ugly tumor. The sarcoma looked like a bulging balloon, slightly inflated, consistent with Wangabe's breathing rate. Lost. After a while, Wangabe's expression became more helpless. He shook his head, loosened the fingers pressed in front of his left eye socket, and said to himself, there is only one chance. It seems that Yan Cao also failed. Why? It's so unlucky to encounter such a monster. Jingle bell. At this time, Wangabin's antique mobile phone rang. Husband, where are you? I'm shopping in town. Wangabi answered the phone. On the other end of the phone came the voice of his wife, Penny, a native of Gugu Town. Still not going home? I made your favorite pine nut cake. Wangabi smiled. The tumor on his right shoulder gradually shrank and disappeared from his body in a few seconds. Okay, I'll go back now. Yeah, Penny has cleaned up and is waiting for you, Mua. Be good, okay. Wangabi's face instantly showed a mysterious smile that everyone understands and ended the call. He stood there and waited for a while, but the person he imagined did not appear. Wangabi could only sigh softly and go down the mountain the same way. Since you failed, then, go home. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 669. North of Gugu Town. Mine. Layer 89, Magma Layer. The hot air exudes the pungent smell of blood. The fishy mucus left behind after the monster's death is mixed with the smell of blood. After evaporating, it turns into colorful mist and disperses in the mineral seam. Among the corpses of monsters everywhere, a woman covered with bones was confronting a hunk with his upper body exposed. The bone armor on Birunding's body had hollow fist marks on it. At this moment, bone fragments were peeling off Birunding's body, revealing the white and red flesh and blood inside. How long can you hold on? Yan Cao raised his fist and chuckled. The ability is quite fancy, but it can defeat all means with one force. No fancy skills can stop the pure power. Yet, behind the white bone armor, Birunding bit his wet lips and stared at Yan Cao's back. Yan Cao blocked the only exit with his body. If you want to leave the mine, you must first get past Yan Cao. They chased and fled, fighting all the way from the 87th floor to the 89th floor, going deeper and deeper. It's impossible for your bones to grow infinitely, right? I don't believe in the fact that these skills are so buggy. They just consume spiritual energy or physical energy. Both of them have almost used up their props. Entered the final stage of fighting. The duel between the apostles is all about foundation, ability, and endurance. Neither Birunding nor Yan Cao wanted to continue talking nonsense. When we reach the stage of fighting to the death, there is no point in talking nonsense anymore. Birunding is worried about Jianduoduo now. No wonder Wangabi said he wanted to be with his wife today and had no time to go to the mines. Obviously, Yan Cao had long expected that he would not be able to hold the two of them down at the same time. He deliberately let Jianduoduo go and challenged Birunding to a duel. As for Jianduoduo, Wangabi must be waiting. As for the purpose, no need to say more. The speed with which Yilin descended from the mine unintentionally exposed his strength. Just good at sneaking? Yan Cao and Wangabi would not be so stupid as to believe in Apostle's words. What's more, they teamed up and went to the mines for a long time. On the surface, Yan Cao and Wangabi knew the general abilities of Jianduoduo and Birunding. Kill with greater confidence. Don't blame me, I just did what I was supposed to do. Yan Cao sighed softly. Right now, a circle filled with orange-red sparks appeared strangely between Yan Cao and Birunding. Yo! Don't tell me, this circle seems a bit familiar. The mage who died young used this very move to throw them out of the mage tower. As for why he died young? That's because, at a certain gathering of 5 farmers, Yilin narrated a story in a tone of regret, sadness, and loss, the explosion of the mage tower and the tragic death of the mage. Is this a loss of morality or a distortion of human nature? Because of that story and the fact that the master never showed up, everyone believed that the master, an important resident, was really dead. If you don't die, why are you missing? Is it fun? It's not fun. So everyone believed the Sorcerer Supreme was dead. What a miserable death. So, when the circle appeared, Wangabi and Bai Runding, who were preparing to fight again, were both stunned. But what no one expected was that the person who crossed over from the other side of the circle was not a mage. Don't pull my hair, you bastard. Yulin appeared on the 89th floor of the mine with Duo in hand. You. Yan Cao cursed angrily, and he reacted very quickly. His right hand shook and retracted, as if he was about to take out some trump card from the storage space. Boom. Yuren fired a shot. Time was in a hurry, and Yulin only had time to accumulate 15 levels, which was not too much. It's just a supercharged bullet with 150% power increase and 150% heart rate, no big deal. After getting the chaos value prompt, Yulin confirmed that Yan Cao was dead. Even before seeing the chaos value prompt, Yulin was certain that Yan Cao was dead. After all, his head was blown off. Unless it is a creature that can survive without relying on its brain, there is absolutely no possibility of survival. What trump card did Yan Cao want to pull out before he died? Yulin is actually quite interested. But in order to avoid long nights and many dreams, instead of killing Bai Runding, it would be safer to kill Yan Cao. And Yulin originally wanted to ask something. Just because when he stepped out of the teleportation circle, Yulin found that Yan Cao was still at ease. In order to prevent the opponent from showing any trump cards, he just collapsed. Most of the life-saving trump cards need to be used actively. Once the items are used up, it will be endless. Yulin does not want to toss for so long. It is a waste of time. So don't ask, it's pointless. The two women, Bai Runding and Duo, were stunned. Yan Cao, who was hooting or jumping around just now, forced the two of them to escape, and the King of Mines Yan Cao, whose bones and armor were shattered, was dead. Just die like this? Bai Runding sat slumped on the ground, but the high temperature on the ground suddenly made her jump up, covering her butt. Her pretty face was red, very moist, as if water could drip out at any time. But is so hot. Don't get me wrong, Yulin looked at Bai Runding, who was holding his butt and hesitating to speak, smiled slightly, and took the initiative to explain, I just think that in that case, you can leave with a lot of money, so it is better to negotiate terms. That's all. Bai Runding secretly smacked her tongue, but after a moment, she understood her situation, looked at each other with Duo, and then nodded in unison. 1 minute later, Yulin opened the teleportation circle again and returned to her farm with Duo and Bai Runding. Bai Runding and Duo looked at each other. The abilities Yulin displayed, whether it was skills or enhancements, were terrifying enough. With this ability to come and go freely, no matter who it is, once it becomes Yulin's enemy, it will be a nightmare that will never end. No one wants to have a circle suddenly appear when they are sleeping, taking a shower, or doing other things, and a hateful-looking weirdo jumps out of the circle. When they thought about this, Bai Runding and Duo no longer wanted to resist. Obediently followed Yulin into the circle. And to be honest, they also want to experience this kind of teleportation across space. After killing Yan Cao, the three returned to Yulin's farm. The Supreme Mage saw that Yulin had returned safely and found that Yulin had finally used the teleportation circle freely. He nodded with joy, then carried the scythe, hummed an unknown ditty, and floated into the vegetable field under the power of the cloak. Farmer, you hurry up and take care of your affairs, I'll go collect the vegetables first. Duo and Bai Runding stared at the mage who had resurrected from the dead. Their painting style suddenly changed, and they cried out in their hearts. This is unscientific. After a while, Duo finally understood and glared at Yulin, you are cheating. How could you let the residents help farm the land? No wonder your ranking has always been high. Wow, oh, I'm still alone. Do you know what it feels like to endure the scorching sun, rain, and thunder, working hard in the fields, plowing soil, drenching manure, pulling weeds, and planting rice seedlings, and not getting enough sleep every day? My fair and tender skin has been tanned. Chienduoduo stretched out his 5 fingers again and raised them in front of Yilin. Did you see these calluses? Look. How could you cheat like this? Chienduoduo's mentality collapsed. How could this man do this? Others are working so hard that they are making themselves miserable. This guy is really good. I don't know what method he used to convince the local residents to help, so he didn't have to do it himself, you bastard. How could this be? Is it still fair? Cheating. I want to report it. Report it? Chienduoduo seemed to burst out more than 300 days of anger in one breath, letting out a hysterical roar. Bai Runding quickly covered Chienduoduo's mouth. Although she was angry and felt incredible, she knew that the seemingly ordinary young man in front of her was not simple. Since he has always been at the top of the farmer rankings, he can learn the skills of the mage, he can also trick the mage into helping him work on his farm, and he can kill Yan Cao with one shot. From these various deeds, there is almost no need to ponder or reason. This guy is definitely the old yandere who acted the most like a pig in this trial, pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. And Yilin was able to kill Yan Cao with one shot without talking nonsense. From another level, he didn't care about anyone's life. There is no benefit in annoying this kind of person. Bai Runding began to think about what price she had to pay to save the lives of the two of them. Yilin ignored Xiaojiju in their hearts. He looked at Chienduoduo and Bai Runding hugging each other and trembling slightly, and smiled. Your relationship looks very good. Stop talking nonsense, Chienduoduo said bravely. What conditions do you want? Tell me quickly. At worst, after the repair, our Chienduoduo will be a young girl again. Chienduoduo began to think of bad things, but looking at her expression, it seemed that she was not as free and easy as she said on the surface. Bai Runding looked at Chienduoduo. She sighed suddenly and took out a star-shaped purple fruit. Is this enough? Yilin's expression was slightly stunned. He never expected that he would see another piece of the epic after-dinner fruit in Bai Runding's hand after he had just eaten it. With a wave of his hand, the fruit floated from Bai Runding's hand to Yilin's mouth. While the Supreme Mage was away, Yilin ate it quickly. Spiritual side, extraordinary level. If Bai Runding was just suspicious before. But when Yilin used his telekinesis ability casually, Bai Runding was absolutely certain that Yilin was an extraordinary apostle who had unlocked the first layer of spiritual locks and broken through the limits of the human spirit. How could a character of this level appear in a trial of this level? This is impossible. The star fruit melts in your mouth. As a soul cooking master, Yilin got to taste the taste of the epic fruit this time. The sour and sweet warmth instantly made the pores all over Yilin's body relax. Yilin felt her scalp was slightly numb, and she suddenly had the illusion that her soul was floating. Don't you think you just have a second one? Yilin finished eating, wiped the corners of her mouth, and looked at Chienduoduo. How did you know dash? As soon as 4 words came out of Chienduoduo's mouth, he covered his mouth in horror and stared at Yilin. At this moment, she even suspected that Yilin had a skill similar to mind reading and could see through the thoughts hidden deep in her heart. Such people. Terrible. Mom, I want to go home. Woohoo, take me home quickly. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi. Chapter 670. Chienduoduo reluctantly took out another starfruit. The third one. Yilin swallowed again. I'm still not finished. Yilin burped. It seemed like I was full from eating epic fruits. Don't you have a third one? Yilin asked tentatively again. Anyway, give it a try, Qianduoduo won't get pregnant, and Yulin won't lose money. Qianduoduo finally stopped in Bengbu. The grievances, old and new hatreds that he had been holding back for more than 300 days broke out together, and he lay on the ground and cried loudly. She was crying really loudly. After Yulin finished eating, he suddenly remembered something important. So he curiously asked how they obtained these star fruits. Especially Qianduoduo, there are 2 of them. He truly deserves to be the best liver emperor in this trial. Anyway, Yulin had already eaten it up and refused to admit it. Bai Runding had no reason to hide it and told the origin of this starfruit. It turns out that the first person to get the key to the sewer and find Kribus, the hidden resident of Kugu town, can buy a starfruit from Kribus for a mere 20,000 G. This is a one-time purchase. No wonder when Yulin found Kribus, this epic fruit was no longer on the product list. Qianduoduo's eyes were red, with tears in his eyes, and he stared at Yulin, daring to be angry but afraid to speak. Now that Bai Runding has confessed, Qianduoduo dare not say it. Anyway, the epic fruits are all gone, so speaking harshly now will only arouse the man's fiercer temper. The Gan Emperor, who is smart, understands the situation and takes the overall situation into consideration, has a lot of money and will not ask for trouble. After completing the museum branch and finding most of the collections, Gunther will give you one as a gift. As for the other one, there is a fisherman named Willy on the seaside. As long as he catches all kinds of fish in the current version, he will also give you one. 1. Do you know how much time and energy I spent, despite the wind and sun, rain and snow, and the weather, to remove all the fish from the lake, from the smelly ditch, and from the sea? Fish it from the river. The current version, Yulin was stunned. Well, that's what Fisherman Willy said at the time. Maybe it was some fish map or something. Qianduoduo wiped his tears and answered the man's question honestly. Yulin nodded, that's really cool. Yulin looked at Qianduoduo's deep-set dark circles and felt inexplicably pitiful for this little girl with dark complexion and yellow hair. After staying in Gugu town for more than 300 days, she seemed to have aged more than 10 years, from a young girl to a black-faced woman in one fell swoop. Quite hard work. Yulin suppressed a smile. Of course he knew that because he was always overfishing, the difficulty of fishing for others increased exponentially. Of course he would not tell this, otherwise Qianduoduo would only cry more sadly. Of course, if she guessed it herself, that would be another story. They had no evidence anyway. After telling the origin of the starfruit, Qianduoduo and Bai Runding secretly communicated privately. Bai Runding pursed her lips. She looked at Yulin for a long time and found that Yulin didn't seem to have any evil thoughts towards the 2 of them, so she asked cautiously, then, can we go? Leave? Yulin looked at the 2 of them with a puzzled expression. Isn't it true that we haven't negotiated terms yet? You. When Qianduoduo heard this, his hair suddenly exploded. He jumped up from the ground, his lips turned white, and he pointed at Yulin with trembling fingers. Her scalp was numb from Yulin's manipulation, her eyes widened as if looking at a monster, and she exclaimed. Are you still a human? An epic prop? This is a precious epic prop. It's a top-notch prop that can permanently increase your spiritual power by 10%. For your spiritual side, isn't it the best of the best? Is this a shame? Your conscience has been eaten by a dog. Can you do such a thing? She no longer cares about so much. Anyway, it's just a shot from Yulin. Big deal, hold your head high and die. She has a lot of money and is not someone who is afraid of death. Moreover, this man is so shameless. Epic props. You eat it, there is nothing we sisters can do about it. But you wipe your mouth clean and refuse to admit it? You can't be like this. You are not a son of man. Don't worry yet. Yulin waved her hand, pushed Qianduoduo back to the ground with a slap from the air, and said with a smile, "Have you forgotten that besides Yan Cao, there is another person who is eyeing you?" Bai Runding and Qianduoduo were stunned for a moment. Yilin's tone seemed to have been seen in some TV series. This is clearly the tone used by the villain to threaten innocent citizens. Should we say next, "If you don't want to die, just do what you want"? Really? As Qianduoduo expected, Yilin continued, "His long-range sniping ability is impossible to guard against. Your mission has not been completed yet, and you don't want to be hindered by him at the last moment, causing you all to fail to complete the mission and be defeated by Grandpa Wrap It Up. What do you want?" Bai Runding subconsciously covered her chest. She was thinking wrongly. Yilin chuckled and finally stated the condition he had been preparing for a long time: "I will guarantee that you will leave this trial alive." Personality guarantee. But you must designate the task reward as a gem replicator and make it before leaving the trial. After practicing, leave it to me. Yilin was not afraid that the two would go back on their word after agreeing. Anyone who has seen his ability to draw circles and teleport with his own eyes would not dare to go back on his word. Who is not afraid of someone suddenly appearing in his room in the middle of the night, laughing and touching his head? That's it. Bai Runding's hands covering his chest were involuntarily released. Fortunately, she just had a fierce ideological struggle. If Yilin really made any excessive demands, would she comply? Or do you want to resist? Or would you rather die than obey? The conditions Yilin proposed were surprisingly simple. In her opinion, although these farmers' props are magical, they are basically useless when brought back. They wouldn't return to the real world and foolishly study how to farm, right? As for the gem replicator, it's not like they haven't thought about it. But with the version update 2.0, times have changed. Overnight, almost everyone became an apostle. The order established over the years in the real world collapsed overnight. Values, the monetary system, and the rhythm of life are all in chaos in an instant, and they are no longer what they used to be. Diamond jewelry and luxury jewelry that were once sought after by countless people in the real world have become unpopular. The value of these valuables is not even comparable to a rare grade prop or equipment. So, what is the use of this gem replicator? Bai Runding had strange thoughts in her mind, but she was afraid that Yilin would regret it or make more excessive demands, so without saying a word, she winked at Qianduoduo 18 times, telling Qianduoduo not to think too much and to agree quickly. "Let's talk about it later." Yilin nodded with satisfaction and decided to let the two of them leave. "How on earth did you know that I had the second starfruit?" Before leaving, Qianduoduo finally couldn't help it anymore and wanted to ask for clarification. Yilin rolled his eyes. "Isn't this very obvious? Who wouldn't want to take a bite of an epic prop with unclear attribute descriptions and still keep it on his body? So, there is only one possibility, that is, Bai Runding knows about this epic prop. The true function of the props. How did she know? It was just that someone told her after eating it. The next step is a simple multiple choice question. If you try a little cheating and see your reactions, you can get a rough guess." Yilin said matter-of-factly. "It is indeed a fraud." At last, Qianduoduo cried sadly and was dragged away from Yilin's farm by Bai Runding. Yilin faintly heard the pop sound of Qianduoduo slapping her face, and while slapping her back, she cried and scolded herself, "I made you have a bad mouth. I made you have a bad mouth. I made you have a bad mouth." Well, she is a little girl who knows how to reflect. Yilin looked thoughtfully at the backs of the two people leaving, especially Bai Runding. Just at this moment, the mage who came as a farm assistant also collected a wave of vegetables and was happily stuffing them into the shipping box. "Is it done?" the mage asked with a wink. Yilin shook his head. "There is still one person left." At night, Yilin slowly shared a sumptuous dinner with the supreme mage. After eating and drinking, he waved and drew a circle and came to the wilderness, where there was a farm. Wangaba's farm. On the farm, everything is well taken care of. In a log cabin in the distance, there was warm firelight, and there were faint figures walking around inside the house. Yulin stood outside the window. A girl with her hair tied up was happily busy in the kitchen, while Wangaba maintained a smile and looked at Yulin outside the window. Yulin did not deliberately hide her whereabouts, she came in a big way, and Wangaba also noticed Yulin's presence. The two looked at each other through the window. At this time, Penny, a new mother in the house, brought out a plate of freshly baked pine nut cakes. "It tastes good." Yulin smelled the fragrance wafting from the room. As a professional soul cook, he couldn't help but praise Penny's cooking skills. He did not disturb Wangaba and Penny. Yulin stood quietly outside the window for half an hour, watching Wangaba and his wife enjoying dinner in the room until the end. "Be good, you take a shower later, and my husband goes out to smoke a cigarette." Wangaba chuckled and patted Penny's butt. Penny laughed and shouted that she was disgusted, but she wanted to resist and pushed her butt towards Wangaba's hand. The two of them had a little fight, and Penny went to the kitchen with a smile to clean up the dishes after the meal. At this time, Wangaba silently took out a cigarette from his body, opened the door, and lit it skillfully. It turns out she is Penny. Yulin was impressed. When he was chatting with Vincent to collect information, the boy was still shouting that he would marry Penny as his wife when he grew up. Poor Vincent. He wanted to marry Penny, but he was destined to wait until the 5 farmers left. Ah no, there are only 4 left now. Yan Cao has died in the mine, so pitiful. In the darkness, smoke obscured Wangaba's face. Wangaba looked at Yulin, whose body was completely lurking in the shadows, puffing out smoke rings happily, and said with a smile, "Thank you for letting me and my wife finish this meal." Yulin also smiled, "I didn't expect that you actually enjoy it, well, I mean this kind of life." "Is it weird?" Wangaba was silent for a moment and took a few sips. The cigarette in his hand suddenly burned violently and sparks flew. Wangaba finished the cigarette in several puffs, stubbed out the cigarette butt in his hand, and then threw it into the waste basket next to the door. After doing all this, Wangaba's face returned to calmness and he said, "Isn't this kind of life what we dream of? Calm, safe, and risk-free. Get married, have children, grow old together with an ordinary woman, and don't have to worry about when you will die. During the trial, you don't have to worry about being assassinated by your enemies one day." Yes, Yulin nodded, agreeing with Wangaba's words, but then said, "But I'm not completely satisfied where I am now." Before, Wangaba smiled slightly, "I personally killed many indigenous people in the trial, and watched them being blown into bloody flowers by my compression sniper cannon, bang, I enjoyed that kind of killing. Pleasure. I have always regarded the people in the trial as NPCs in video games. If I kill them, I will kill them. If I sleep, I will sleep. What does it matter? Everything we have experienced is not so much a trial. Rather, it's more like a game, a life-threatening game." Yulin responded with silence, and Wangaba lit another cigarette and continued, "Maybe it's because I've been here for a long time. There was a time when I almost forgot my original identity. I don't know why, I became more and more the more I feel that these trial worlds we have experienced are more like real existences, and the people in this world are flesh and blood, with love and hatred, they like a living person." Listening to Wangaba's tirade that seemed to be complaining or expressing his true feelings, Yulin narrowed his eyes and said, "Oh. Haha, thank you for listening to my whining." Wangaba smiled, flicked his wrist, and a card flew towards Yulin. "Give it to you." "Ah, this. Another starfruit." Yulin walked to the farm stream. "Wash the starfruit with clean water, nibble it in your mouth, and ask, where did it come from?" Yulin's calm reaction made Wangaba slightly startled. "Is this an epic fruit? Just chewed it into your mouth so easily and casually." Let's have a more grand, formal, and thoughtful use ceremony, right? Wangabi always felt that something was wrong. This is the reward you get after your friendship with a certain resident of Gugu Town reaches an all-time high. Disposable. Should be. So, you have more than one resident whose favorability is off the charts. As expected of you. Wangabi glanced into the room subconsciously, with an embarrassed look on his face. Ahem, if you see through it, don't say it. In a few words, Yilin had already digested the starfruit. There was another bang in my head, and it was stretched open. Counting it down, this is already the fourth starfruit that Yilin has obtained in various ways in Gugu Town. After Yilin ate them separately, she received a total of 40% of the permanent spiritual power limit bonus. Coupled with the attributes of the epic title Shadow Warlock, Yilin's spiritual energy value has almost doubled. The powerful Nangshen is so terrifying. Why don't you eat it yourself? Yilin asked curiously. If I eat it, won't I have no bargaining chip now? Wangabi spread his hands and said with a smile, so, is this fruit enough to buy my life? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 671. At last. Yilin left. He reached an agreement with Wangabi. To be honest, in this nightmare-level trial, Yan Cao and Wangabi calculated every step and were more like competent senior apostles than anyone else. Unfortunately, in the end, Yilin used her absolute strength to crush the plan. The words Wangabi said while smoking a cigarette in the dark touched Yilin a little. He and Penny got married in this world. Before the trial ended, Wangabi just wanted to live a peaceful and ordinary farm life and no longer worry about the intrigues in the trial. Winter is coming. There are less than 30 days until the trial ends. Qianduoduo and Bai Runding repeatedly confirmed the answer they received from Yilin, saying that Wangabi would never attack them again, but they were doubtful. But Bai Runding and Qianduoduo were still worried, so they specially ordered some iron plates and nailed the windows of the house airtight to prevent Wangabi's long-range sniping. As for Yilin, that's impossible to guard against. If Yilin really had any weird thoughts, the two of them had no choice but to just go with it. There is nothing to resist, everyone is tired, why bother? This trial has reached its final stage. But the painting style is completely different from before. Yilin counted on her fingers and estimated that the progress of others had almost caught up with hers, so she stuffed the ancient fruit wine stocked in the cellar into the dimensional shipping box. The value of this shipment is difficult to estimate. But it did almost fill up the dimensional shipping box. The surface of the box was actually bulging. Congratulations to agricultural saint Yilin for her total assets exceeding 30,000,000 G. The level is upgraded to Farmer Emperor. Please keep up the good work. Primary main task, obtain 30 million assets within 3 years, task completed. Please specify the farmer machine reward. A box interface appeared in front of Yilin. With a tap of the finger, the light flows, and a long list pulls down. Of course, Yilin would not hesitate, choosing the gem copying machine as her first choice. OK. Done. Random rewards and designated farmer machine rewards will be distributed together with the return. Please Farm Emperor Yilin wait patiently for the 3-year period to end. At this moment, in the wind and snow, a red light fell from the sky, like a meteor, and hit the mailbox next to the door of Farmer Yilin's cabin. Yilin would receive letters from other residents from time to time, but this was the first time that such a big movement had occurred. What happened? The Supreme Mage who was cleaning the chicken coop seemed to have noticed the red light flashing just now, and hurriedly rushed out of the chicken coop. It shouldn't be a bad thing. Yilin waved her hand, signaling the Supreme Mage to be calm. During this trial, Yulin encountered a lot of strange things. No matter how weird things were, it was hard to move him. Couldn't help it. In the mailbox, lying quietly, was a letter with a red cover. There is a sticker on the seal of the letter in the shape of a cute bat. Really? Yulin seemed to be able to conjure up a certain person with a nasty personality but an extremely awesome personality, hiding somewhere in Gugu Town, watching everything that happened in the 360 days of Gugu Town, he. Laughing and popping popcorn, it was like watching a boring TV series. Whose letter? The Supreme Master Bagua got angry. Husa came over and slapped Yulin. Think about who trapped you here. What? When the Supreme Mage heard this, he became angry and his cloak flew up. Forget it, don't bother, you can't do it. Yulin kindly reminded the mage and tore open the envelope, revealing Juingziu's small words inside. Juingziu. Yulin recalled the style of the weird-faced uncle in Green Town, and seriously doubted whether the font was used wrongly. Confused farmer. Congratulations on successfully accumulating 30 million assets and being the first to achieve the Farmer Emperor achievement. Hereby rewards. Wish you a wonderful night, good night. At the end of the letter, there is no signature. There is only one pattern. It was a cartoon head of a bat with the corners of its mouth turned up and grinning. Award. Just when Yulin was about to ask where the reward was, the letter he had just finished reading turned into dots of red light. After a few seconds, countless rays of light gathered and turned into a starfruit in Yulin's palm. The two of them were silent from beginning to end as they watched the process of the starfruit appearing. Look, the Supreme Mage finally broke the silence. He looked at the starfruit in Yulin's hand eagerly. Knowing that he couldn't grab it, he didn't do anything. He could only look at Yulin with resentful eyes. You're right, it's made of pure energy. Awesome, Yulin gave a thumbs up to the Supreme Mage with his left hand and praised him, and quickly stuffed the fifth starfruit he obtained into his mouth with his right hand. This is already the fifth time, even if it is a delicacy in the world, I should be tired of it. Yulin's expression did not change at all. He looked up at the night sky with fine snow, a bit of melancholy flashing in his eyes. Almost, it's time. Upon hearing this, the Supreme Mage put away his resentful eyes, although he didn't know where Yulin was looking up now, as if he was just showing off. But to suit the occasion, the Supreme Mage also raised his head at the same angle, looking in the same direction as Yulin. Yeah, it's time to go. The departure time of the Supreme Mage was initially scheduled to be 3 days later. Mainly depends on the weather. If the weather is good, we will proceed as planned. If the weather is bad, we can just reschedule. Anyway, we have enough time and it's not that urgent. You'd better just use the teleportation technique of the crystal pattern system. As a great engineer of the crystal pattern technique, Yulin made reasonable and professional suggestions. You don't have to worry about the amount of energy being transmitted. You can get as much as you want. There are two biggest uncertainties at the moment. First, as we all know, teleportation requires coordinates. Whether it is your spell or my crystal pattern, if you want to accurately determine the point of teleportation, you need to draw up a teleportation coordinate. To be honest, I have never tried to cross. I really can't help you with the experience of being transported from two different worlds. Hey, the Supreme Mage smiled, I'm very familiar with this. I really hope you won't brag in front of me now. Yulin looked at the confident smile of the Supreme Mage and couldn't help but smile. As for the second key point, it depends on that person's attitude. That one, the Supreme Mage's eyes narrowed slightly. He quickly understood the meaning of Yulin's words. He pointed to the sky above his head. You mean this one? Yulin nodded. I don't know which one of those gods like Weishan Emperor and Dormammu you boasted about before is more powerful than that one. But one thing I can be sure of is that we are here. Everything the island does, whether you have been trapped here for 20 years or we have been messing around here, is equivalent to jumping around on its territory, and it should be able to know everything that happens here. Yes, the Supreme Mage had no doubt, otherwise you wouldn't have received the letter just now. After saying that, both of them fell silent. They did not continue the discussion. But the Supreme Mage already knew what Yulin wanted to say. This is Green's territory. Yulin's main mission does not directly conflict with Green. But these outsiders have always been operating under Green's nose. Green might know everything. It knows about outsiders, knows about the main missions, and even, very likely knows what is going on in the real world where Yulin lives. In other words, whether the Supreme Mage can finally leave here, the most critical point is, whether Green is willing to let him go. As the Supreme Mage said before, in their eyes, human beings are humble and insignificant existences. They exist forever. In their long lives, this is the only price that may bring them trivial pleasure. It is very possible that the 5 outsiders and the Supreme Mage who accidentally broke in here are just ants who brought fun to Green. Yulin still remembers the last time in Greentown. Green once said something to Yulin with a smile. "See you later, outsiders." Yulin closed her eyes. That line wasn't goodbye, it meant, see you later. Call. Yulin casually opened a teleportation circle, reached out from the teleportation circle, and took out 2 bottles of ancient fruit wine that had been chilled in advance. Boo! The 2 bottle corks were opened at the same time, and Yulin thrust one of them into the mage's hand. "Just blow on the bottle, it's a lot, I have money, you're welcome." The mage took a big gulp. On a cold day, cold wine has a unique taste. Feeling cool and excited. "First of all, I wish you go home and wish you success." The mage smiled, "I wish us success." Gan. Sorry. Who doesn't think it's Sunday? Night 2. A blizzard hits. There was a blizzard all over the sky, making everything in sight submerged in the deep snow. In the dead of night. A farm with lots of money. A circle of light appeared out of thin air. Yulin stepped out from behind the circle of light and stepped silently on the thick snow. Not far away, Chienduoduo, wearing a simple cotton-padded jacket, dug a hole in the frozen river. She said nothing, her whole body covered with a thick layer of frost, and she was ice fishing alone by the river. Yulin did not conceal the sound of his footsteps. When he walked to Chienduoduo, Chienduoduo waved his hand and asked Yulin to sit down without looking back. "Would you like to fish together?" Okay, Yulin subconsciously agreed at first, but when she was about to roll up her sleeves and fish, she suddenly remembered, "Oh, by the way, I don't have a fishing rod. I am stupid." Chienduoduo couldn't stand it anymore. "You don't have a fishing rod?" "Ahem, that's not important." Yulin sensed the release and found that there was no bait at all on Chienduoduo's fishing rod, and it smelled like a willing fisherman. It's a pity that the fish in the river are not that stupid. No wonder the fish basket next to Chienduoduo is still empty. "You forgot to put the bait on your hook." "I did it on purpose." Chienduoduo rolled his eyes, thinking that this idiot was indeed cheating. But now, she seemed to be unable to pursue anything, and sat back down weakly. He threw the fishhook without bait into the ice hole in the river. Oh! Yulin didn't ask Chienduoduo why he did this. He guessed it. Chienduoduo said to himself, "I find it strange. It's almost over, but after staying here for a long time, I always feel uncomfortable unless I find something to do." It's normal. Yulin didn't intend to show off his superb fishing skills in front of Chienduoduo. He stood up and drew a circle around him. "I'm just here to remind you, don't forget our agreement." "I see, it's not a strange reward, it's just a farmer's machine. You've even swallowed epic items and still care about this." Chienduoduo thinks there's something wrong with Yulin, but so far, there's nothing to say. Waving his hand with a look like "I want to be alone," he waved off, "I almost have enough 30 million. After completing the task, I will definitely abide by the agreement and set the task reward as a gem copying machine. The end. Chienduoduo added, I don't want to be stared at by people like you, and I won't even feel comfortable sleeping. After she said this, no one responded behind her. Chienduoduo suddenly turned his head and found that Yilin had left without leaving any trace. This kind of person is so terrible. A long time. Chienduoduo was shocked and frightened, and sighed from the bottom of his heart. How could such a person be allowed to learn such a bug-level skill that comes and goes without a trace? What's the difference between this and putting a cannon into a robber's hand? Ridiculous. There is no justice. Chienduoduo pulled up the fishhook bitterly, but the next second, he was suddenly startled. Because she was surprised to find that she deliberately did not put any bait just to catch a lonely hook, and actually there was a dying snapper firmly attached to the hook. That poor fish seemed to have encountered something. Its eyes were wide open, its mouth was opening and closing, and it was squirming. It looked aggrieved, as if it had some huge grievance that it was hard to express. How did you get hooked? Chienduoduo's eyes widened. Wait, Chienduoduo remembered Yilin's extraordinary mental ability not long ago, and suddenly, she understood everything. Grass. Remind. Yilin is not that boring. He went to demonstrate. No one understands the apostle's temperament better than Yilin. If they don't take special measures to remind them, they might forget about their original agreement. Yilin followed suit and went to Bai Runding's farm. Even at night, Bai Runding was dressed like a pretty peasant woman and was working hard to make wool in the pig house, very diligently. But before Yilin could speak, Bai Runding blinked and instantly guessed Yilin's purpose. Don't worry, it's a gem replicator, right? I remember it. Just remember. Yilin drew a circle and prepared to step into the circle and leave. Wait, Bai Runding caught up a few steps and held Yilin back. According to convention, these rewards should be given out when you return. How will we give them to you then? This should be what I'm worried about. Yilin smiled. The original agreement was to ensure that you return safe and sound. Naturally, we will make a deal after returning. To be honest. Yilin pointed at the circle in front of her and smiled slightly. I personally believe in your credibility and I am not afraid that you will default on your debt. In short, I will contact you as soon as possible after returning. Bai Runding watched Yilin step into the circle of light and disappear into the snow. There was a moment of silence. Bai Runding pursed her moist lips, feeling angry and funny, but she couldn't get angry. You talk so nicely, aren't you just here to threaten me? You can get in and out in this way, who dares to default on your debt? Note, it's a big chapter. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yishueshi. Chapter 672. Bai Runding, for Yilin, is the key target of attention. When Bai Runding confronted Yan Xiao that day, Yilin was almost certain that she was the mysterious 8 shadows and bones that Yilin had seen before. But now Bai Runding seems to have no signs of evolving into that kind of anti-human character. Yilin was curious. It seems everything has changed. Therefore, Barundaying is a very good observation and test subject. Maybe Yilin can write a paper in the future on how the natural disaster camp was formed. As for Wangaba's side, Yilin thought of the wet life of Wangabi and Penny. Now maybe, after dinner, they are huddled together to take a shower or something. Forget it, let's go next time. For every apostle, there is no longer any suspense about the outcome of this trial. Even Chienduoduo felt uncomfortable. In the past, when every trial was coming to an end, everyone would fight fiercely. But this time, Chienduoduo felt like he had nowhere to put his liver. It was so uncomfortable. So she started fishing without bait to kill the last of her time. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. The third day. At night. The ground was covered with a layer of snow. Clear night sky, cloudless. The shining stars gathered together to form a river, dazzling and shining with starlight. Looking directly at the sky, one can't help but feel the vastness of the universe. At this time, in Yulin Farm, the crops on the ground have long been cleared. The thick snow is covered with complex circuits. Loop after loop, link after link, link after link. The entire super-large compound circuit covers almost 3/4 of Yulin's farm. This is Yulin's first time playing a circuit of this scale. The great engineer and the supreme mage from the two worlds are having a final heated discussion. You are using an offensive circuit here. Are you planning to use violence to tear apart the barrier in the sky? What's wrong? No. It's okay, or rather, it's an interesting idea. But I'm mainly worried about angering that person. But the matter is at this point, and I don't care about that much anymore. You chose to leave the key coordinate points blank, Yulin thought carefully, and after a moment understood the Supreme Mage's plan. So, you are planning to use magic induction after violently tearing open the barrier. After reaching the corresponding coordinates, do the final filling. Yulin and the Master were floating in mid-air respectively, looking down from a high position, repeatedly checking the various nodes of the entire super-large composite circuit. There is only one chance. Cross-border teleportation is not a risk-free operation. Yulin didn't know what would happen to the Supreme Mage if something went wrong in this transmission process. But at this point, Yulin has taught as much as he can, without any reservation. The Supreme Mage lived up to Yulin's expectations. Although his qualifications were a bit lacking, he spent so much time and finally mastered the essence of the crystal pattern technique. You can leave now. Yulin smiled happily. He could vaguely feel how Adeng felt when he watched his rapid progress in the great engineer tower. Perhaps this is the joy of cultivation. It's a pity, the Supreme Mage rarely hesitated, looking at Yulin with complex eyes, because I can't use their power. There are many profound magics that I can't demonstrate to you personally. That's enough. Yulin shook his head and didn't mind. The real secret of knowledge does not lie in inheriting it unchanged. It lies in developing another more interesting system based on the original foundation and combining it with one's own understanding. Drawing inferences from one example to another, the apprentice is starved to death by the master. That is where the joy of knowledge lies. As Yulin spoke, the finger with the hanging ring flicked gently in the void. Circles of orange-red ripples swayed out, outlining Yulin's wrists and fingers. It was a spell that the Supreme Mage was very familiar with, but it had turned into the shape of Yulin. Combining your spells with my previous knowledge of crystal pattern technique, the new method of using mental power, freedom technique, is just the last step. At this stage, you can no longer help. Yulin clenched her fists. The light dissipated at his fingertips. Yulin smiled and said, I have no intention of becoming another Supreme Mage. This is such a pity. Although the Supreme Mage said this, the expression on his face did not show any regret at all. Instead, it showed a feeling like witnessing the daughter he had raised with his own hardships, dressed up for marriage. That kind of sad feeling. The Master Supreme remembered that he had left the superhero organization and embarked on a journey across the multiverse alone. It is precisely because he is tired and wants to find someone to inherit his mantle and become another Supreme Guardian and another Supreme Mage. And, Yulin drew a circle, took out 2 bottles of ancient fruit wine from the teleportation circle, and said, if I'm not wrong, those big guys you mentioned, forget it. The Supreme Mage didn't understand Yulin's words for a while, but he couldn't help but eagerly took the ancient fruit wine from Yulin's hand. The two of them sat in the snow, looking up and drinking, feeling extremely happy. This may be the last time we see each other, the last time we have a drink, the last time we can sit in the snow and talk freely about our knowledge. Finish this bottle. The Supreme Mage wanted to shout another bottle out of habit, but he was not a pushy person and knew that he could not delay any longer. So the Supreme Mage put on his cloak, condensed his strength, and filled his body with a mysterious aura. He floated up and landed in the center of the super-large compound circuit. Call. Yulin exhaled a long stream of white mist. On winter nights, it condenses into fine ice crystals. To be honest, it was a lie that he wasn't nervous. But when the Supreme Mage stepped into the center of the circuit, his expression changed in an instant. At this moment, the person standing in front of Yulin is no longer the shameless little old man, the old man who cheated on other people's wives and gave birth to a daughter, and is no longer the old man who confidently lets Yulin do it every day. A gluttonous mage with a feast. He is the Supreme Mage. A legendary mage who truly stands at the pinnacle of magic. Coming. The Supreme Mage's cloak fluttered, and he quickly stuffed the key activation core into the reserved node. 3688. This number sounds quite auspicious. But this is the number of perfect crystals that the Supreme Mage has filled into this cross-border teleportation array. This order of magnitude is so terrifying. According to the calculations of the two of them, they must first tear open the world barrier above Gugu Town, and then use pure crystal energy to build a transmission channel that is enough for the Supreme Mage to pass safely. This requires a lot of energy. This kind of energy consumption is absolutely impossible for a mere human being to bear. This is also the fundamental reason why the Supreme Mage has been trapped here for 20 years. Humans are too weak. However, the crystal pattern technology brought by Yulin made up for the shortcomings of human beings' own lack of power, allowing crystal energy to replace human soul energy. The principle is very complicated. But in the final analysis, it is nothing more than letting the pure energy source replace those big guys such as Vishen Emperor and Dormammu in the mouth of the Supreme Mage to achieve similar effects. The moment the Supreme Mage activated the teleportation array, the ground beneath Yulin's feet began to shake. Outside the teleportation array, cracked ravines appeared silently on the snow as they vibrated. Fortunately, both Yulin and the Supreme Mage had anticipated this situation. Among the complex circuits, there were many structures used to solidify and stabilize the circuits. The lines in the teleportation array are safe and sound. Under the clear starry sky, everything is quiet. In the farm, the cats and ponies are hiding. In the winter night, the only sounds left were the breathing sounds of Yulin and the Supreme Mage. Suddenly, the scarred hands of the Supreme Mage made handprints one after another. He uttered an obscure spell that broke the dead silence of the winter night. Immediately afterwards, at the feet of the Supreme Mage, there was a super-composite teleportation array inlaid with a total of 3,688 perfect-level crystals. The energy of the crystals was stimulated, and rays of light emerged. An energy circuit as white as jade, from the ground rose up, enveloping the Supreme Mage in it. "Farmer, watch carefully." The Supreme Mage suddenly looked at Yulin and shouted loudly. A layer of orange-red light surrounded the jade-white crystal light, and sparks flew everywhere. Crystal pattern technique and magic, two power systems that exist in two worlds and two time and space respectively, are now completely integrated in the hands of the Supreme Mage. Ka-ka-ka-dash. Suddenly, Yulin's eyes were spinning. The entire farm, under the powerful image of the Supreme Mage, appeared a series of terrifying cracks around the space. Along those cracks, the entire farm seemed to have turned into a book. Be divided, folded, and reorganized. A scene like a kaleidoscope was bizarrely played out in front of Yulin. Yulin is proficient in both kinds of knowledge. He knows very well that simple crystal pattern technique cannot create this kind of effect, at least, the current Yulin can't. The Supreme Mage's ability to fold space was accomplished entirely with the help of the power of the crystal and the consumption of soul power. Why are you making so much noise when you have nothing to do? Yulin was floating in the air. He was not obsessed with the magnificent scene in front of him. On the contrary, he was worried about the Supreme Mage, and complained, by the way, if you don't concentrate on drawing circles and activating the teleportation at this time, why are you pretending? Are you here to teach ultimate moves now? What were you doing earlier? After a moment, Yilin understood. The Supreme Mage wanted to take this rare opportunity to show the profound magic he had never had the chance to show in front of Yilin. Let Yilin experience the power of profound magic. As for how much you can comprehend from this short-lived magical light, it depends on Yilin's comprehension ability. Don't worry about me, just concentrate. Yilin frowned and reminded loudly at the edge of the teleportation array.